What is the purpose to writing music in your mind for you?
For me, it's absolutely writing for me first, because I feel very strongly about this. If I feel what I'm singing and writing and performing, then you will believe me and you will feel it. If I'm just singing something that I wrote to make you love me, it's not going to happen. You know, I can't sell anything that I don't believe in myself. And I'm very fortunate that with every song I've ever written, that is the case. I think 99% of my fans love me and are very loyal to me because they can relate to every word I've ever written. I'm not saying I've written hit songs, but I know that I'll go down in history as that girl who touched your heart and helped you heal. I'm all about healing. I'm all about showing two sides of a story, the pain and how to overcome it and get through it and fix the broken parts. So I think some of my songs could have been hits if the right people sang them. I think I'm a great singer, but I guess I'm just not globally recognized enough. So if I had a major label who used and abused me, I probably would have been further today and more people would have heard my songs, but I prefer to not be used and abused. So I'm going to be indie till the day I die, and I'll have my little cult movement and my little underground scene, fans who love my music, my lyrics. To me, it's like, what the hell is classic rock? I mean, you have bands like Zeppelin, Van Halen, Motley Crue on one end, and then you have Nirvana, U2, Pearl Jam on the other end. I mean, these are all the bands between the 60s and the 90s, which is the era which we're kind of told of the classic rock era. So I definitely think it's just an era. It's a time frame, and in my mind, it's guitar-driven, good guitar-driven melodies with no fancy frills, no million synthesizers. It's just raw, pure rock and roll. You get on stage, you play the record, and you see the band get on stage. It's the same sound.
Do you think it has to be blues-based guitar, or could it be any kind of guitar?
I think it could be any kind of guitar, but I definitely think that the blues bass is what inspired and drove a lot of these bands. The Stones, Zeppelin, a lot of these bands got their influence from blues bands. Muddy Waters was a huge influence for so many of those bands. And I think guitar licks, a lot of guitarists got a lot of their inspiration and influence from blues guitar licks. So definitely I think that's part of it. Listen to Janis Joplin and then Zeppelin, it's the same guitar, blues, rock vibe, you know?
How do you define, like, where's the borderline in your mind from what is rock and what is metal? Is it possible to find a border?
That is such a great question, because that's something I was just talking about to somebody like 2 days ago. I think that's an answer that I'm looking for. You know, I really don't know what is the defining thing that makes it metal or rock. I just don't know anymore. I think that I love AC/DC too. I'm a huge AC/DC fan, and Zeppelin. So it's to me, that's a puzzle. You know, I definitely think that the public has a lot to do with defining what's metal and what's rock. And then the public is influenced and manipulated by the radio stations. The radio programmers, they just put something in a box, in a category, put it out there, and then they put it on a classic rock station or a metal station. So, I don't know, for me it's a mystery. Really something I've wondered about so often. What is the difference? Thank God for punk. I think punk saved us from the disco era. Because after that whole first era you were just talking about, suddenly the disco movement started coming in, and then Ramones and the Police showed up and totally diverted everyone from that whole disco thing. The disco, it had its little moment, but it didn't last very long because of the punk era. And I think I'm so happy about that because I, for one, am not a synthesizer keyboards fan at all. So to hear once again the raw, just in your face, pure rock and roll, punk sound was refreshing. I think they kept music, rock, classic rock, alive for a few more years, which was great. And then came the grunge movement. So,
do you think that punk itself is part of classic rock, or is it just another facet of rock and roll that changed the direction of classic rock? What are your perspectives? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, it does, and it's an interesting question. I don't necessarily see punk as classic rock. It's just my first thoughts on it. I think that it is a facet that changed classic rock. But I don't think it's necessarily regarded as classic rock. To me, classic rock is very defined by the guitar riffs. And if you listen to punk, a lot of it's just power chords, downstrokes, fast, da-da-da-da-da. And there's not a lot of melody. It's more just cool chords, 2-minute long, little anthems.
Do you think it's possible for that one band to happen again, or is that in the past? What are your thoughts?
Man, that's such a frustrating question because just like you, that's the thing I wish for so intensely. That's what we need. I think that's what we need to save music, period. I have this huge fear that music is literally dying. I listen to so many of these new bands, and every time I'm excited. I just went to NAMM and I got 1,000 CDs from people. Listen to this, this is my band, and I go home, I listen to it. Okay, I go home and I play it and I'm like, damn, this is not it. Everything sounds so generic. Everyone sounds like everyone. I'm bored to death. I'm hoping and praying that there is going to be one of those bands. Whether there is or not, that I don't know. All I can do is hope and pray that there will be. I think the internet is really helping in a way. Labels died out because of the internet. So people wonder, has music died out because the labels have died out, or is it because the internet's taken over? I think the internet has really helped. The good thing about the internet is I meet people like you, I meet people younger than you who are dressed completely 80s classic rock. They're listening to classic rock and I go, hey, how do you know about all this classic rock stuff? And they go, YouTube, man. I heard it on YouTube. It's so cool. And so I'm like, okay, you know what? The internet is actually keeping classic rock and the good, real music alive. So I'm not going to be one of those people who goes, oh, the internet. It's also given me, as an independent artist, a doorway to do my music my way and not have the labels, tell me what the hell I can and cannot do. I think it is very possible. I think it is physically and musically possible to create real music. I think artists need to stop focusing on what's going on around them as far as other bands and other sounds, because that's all you hear is them sounding like this band sounding like the next band. They need to just go back to the old days, sit down and listen, take out the vinyls from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and just get into that and realize what real music is. Throw away the samples, throw away the synthesizers. Stop trying to change your voice. Sing with your own voice. Be real. It's definitely possible. I think people try too hard to be something that they're not. They try to be something that they think the public wants to hear. The public wants to hear good, real music, like the old days. It's been a long time for me since I've actually worked with a band. I've been a solo artist for the past 10 years now.
And that's relevant too. What's it like, what's the difference essentially?
Yeah, I really miss having a band to create with. I remember when I was living in Europe and South Africa, how cool it was to just get with the band and the guitarist starts a little riff and then the other guitarist is like, oh yeah, that's cool, and joins in, and then the drummer comes in and everyone just slowly creeps in with something. And then as a singer and a lyricist, and I write melodies, and I'm proud of my melodies. I think I'm a great melody writer. It was always so inspiring for me to just close my eyes, sit there, listen to what's happening. How is the seed growing? And then just feeling it and then just going with it. I miss that process. You know, that's definitely a feeling I'm missing lately, especially. But on the other hand, being a solo artist, it's also great traveling around the world, meeting a complete stranger in a room for 3 hours and saying, hey, I'm Dilana, hey Joe, let's write, let's create. Sometimes it's magic, instant magic. It just happens. A beautiful song is born, and I have to say I've been very blessed. Probably 9 out of 10 of my songs have happened that way, that it just instantly happens and it's a beautiful song. It's hard sometimes. A lot of it has to do with human energy. So you'll walk into a room, I'll walk into a room sometimes and meet my co-writer, and there just won't be a chemistry, or our tastes are so different that it's a great thing, but at the same time, sometimes it just clashes too much that it's just not possible. That has happened, where we just eventually sit back and go, all right, this is not going to happen, right? And usually it's when I'm working with a metal or, mostly metal guitarists. They seem to have one direction that they want to go in, and a lot of them aren't open to other directions and just trying something different. They're just so locked into like a little metal riff that they can't open up more.
Is that because they're really dedicated to what their artistry is? Like, are they true artists in that sense?
I think some of them are so dedicated to that style that they've been into and just so in love with it. But I think other times it's when it's someone who's not as skilled, and all they know is just how to play that one sound, and they don't really know how to open up and say, oh, you want a solo with air? You want to breathe here? You actually want to sing a melody? You mean the guitar's not going to do it? You know, stuff like that, where I sometimes just scratch my head and go, okay, this is not going to happen. So, but I still love it, you know. I've even written songs with beat boxes where I'll walk in and the guy is a DJ and he's like, I've got this 30-second sample of beats that I came up with. Can you come up with something? And I've written songs that way, where you just have the beats on a loop and you go, oh, this is a cool vibe. And then I've come up with melodies. So you just have to be open. And sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't.
Still believe in the power of rock and roll music.
Hey, thanks for watching. My name is Daniel Sarkisian. I'm an independent filmmaker from Toronto.
I hate that guitar, but I can play that in one scale.
Don't you dare laugh.
You know, I try to embrace the rock and roll spirit in the sense of I do everything self-funded and independently made with no oversight. As such, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for watching.